That's a payday. Come on.
Welcome to my second episode where I am focusing on the role of payroll within bookkeeping and CPAs and tax shops. And my guest for this month is somebody who has had a huge impact on my life, probably doesn't even realize this. But early when I was converting as a old school cold calling salesman to more of a networking salesperson, and I really got all in with doing one-to-ones, this person was my second one-to-one. Also,
Didn't know that.
The relationship evolved, and when I was in a position where I was going to start looking for another job, he introduced me to Noah, who is the owner of Payroll Partners and my current boss. And you guys were in a B&I group at that point. And honestly, if it wasn't for Craig, we wouldn't be here taping this podcast right now, because he helped me get in with Noah at the right time. And that was a great move for me personally and professionally. And I've never been happier in my career. So I just want to thank you, Craig, for doing that. And I want to introduce my audience to one of the best full service bookkeeping company owners in the greater Cincinnati area. So Craig, my question for you is, why should a business use a full service bookkeeper?
Well, first of all, thanks for that introduction and the impact that I've had on you finding a career path with Payroll Partners. I think that's fantastic. I thought it was a good fit from the time that I introduced you to Noah, and it's worked for both sides. So good stuff. Why should a business use a full service bookkeeping service like Supporting Strategies? I mean, there's a multitude of reasons. Oftentimes there are unique issues for each business, so it's not across the board. But what do you get with us? You get a team of professional accountants. That's what we do. It's not something that we've just kind of backed ourselves into. We have a team of professional accountants that we work as a team. It's not unusual for our clients or prospects to not have invested in their accounting department, and that's what we become. We work with businesses that are range in revenue from maybe $500,000 a year to upwards of $20 million. And certainly in that $500,000 range to maybe $5 million, they have not invested in their accounting, haven't really considered different technology to use, don't have internal controls, don't have separation of duties. And that's what we bring to the table. We bring some forward thinking, professional accounting that utilizes the latest in technology to really enhance the level of information that our clients get.
I think a lot of people think of bookkeeping and they still kind of think of that old school, person writing numbers in a ledger. And then I think that's evolved that now, everybody uses QuickBooks. QuickBooks is the most used, accounting general ledger. But, I had the great opportunity when I referred you to somebody and I sat in for your sales call and got to kind of listen to you do your thing. And, what opened my eyes to where you were different and compared to a lot of, other shops that say they do bookkeeping when really they just train people on QuickBooks, is you were all about advising this specific entrepreneur specific to their industry type, what is the softwares they should be using, from everything from how they take payments to how they organize, how they communicate with their clients. I mean, you were involved in all of that. And then in the end, it did go to QuickBooks. In the end, you use QuickBooks a lot as well for your clients. So, but I think a lot of people don't realize that a bookkeeper like you really are, getting them the equivalent of an accounting department. And I think that's cool. And I think a lot more businesses are starting to realize how hard it is to hire folks to do this niche type of work, as one hat, and then do this along with other hats. as they're a small business growing. And many times it can make sense to get that fractional accounting department or a full service bookkeeper like yours. So
what we see a lot of is the business owner is doing the books.
Yep.
Right. They started a business. It was suggested they get a QuickBooks Online account. They do it.
Yep.
They're not doing it well. It's taking time. It's not their thing.
Yep.
But it's something that they feel like they need to do. They're not quite sure why they're doing it, but it's something that has just kind of progressed as they started a business. Maybe they've handed it off to the receptionist or somebody in the office who expressed some ability to work with QuickBooks. Maybe they've hired somebody to come in-house, but have experienced turnover. So whatever that business is, they want to be focused on growing that business and not managing an accountant. And that's where we really come into play is we do become that accounting department for them or that trusted advisor. When you talk about technology, yeah, when you're into your business, you're not thinking about like, God, how could I pay my bills better? Or how can I, what other apps are available that integrate in with QuickBooks Online or QBO? And I'd be surprised if somebody was really thinking about that.
Yeah.
And that's where, I love sitting down with a prospect or a client and really opening their eyes to what's available out there and the latest in technology. And that's what our focus is on. So I have a staff currently of 10 professional accountants, all QBO certified, all with 4-year degrees in accounting, at least 10 years of accounting experience. And we work as a team. Every client has a manager that we call a FOM.
Yep.
And then we also have an accountant, a staff accountant that we call a FOA. So we have that internal control, separation of duties, managing the quality, and engaging with the client with a team. Most of our clients could not afford the type of quality that we bring to them if they were to pay for them on a full-time basis. And most of the clients that we deal with, they don't need a full-time accountant.
Yeah.
So they may hire somebody and they have them, they've got an office for them and a desk, and come Wednesday at noon, that person might be like, what am I going to do the rest of my week? Right? I've already done everything I need to do, and now I got another 20 hours to fill.
So I can tell you're passionate and you love dealing with money. And this is something like people always say, Matt, you're a really good advocate for payroll partners. You're doing all this cool stuff in sales. Most salespeople don't do. And they say, you should go start your own thing. And people tell me this all the time. And, and you can go tell Noah, I have no desire to do that. And because I have weird issues with money. And if I ever even attempted, I would need a full service bookkeeper because I would hate everything you're talking about. I wouldn't want to meet with you. Do you run into people like that? Like the entrepreneur who just loves the excitement of closing his next client and just is successful because they're a really good salesperson. And then they're weird with their money almost to point like they avoid because we don't like clients that avoid. We like clients that engage with us. Gotcha.
But we like clients that let us do our job, right?
Gotcha.
That they trust in us, that the technology that we recommend, that we bring in, and but they let us do our job, but they also engage with us because we need information, right? We're asking questions.
Yeah.
So we like that engaged client that communicates with us, but allows us to do our job. So there's a little bit of a fine line there.
Yeah. Have you ever kind of felt like a client like me would be hard to work with based on that personality type? Because I think a lot of people are weird with money, and then like they just kind of want to look at their business account and
We're cool with that with a client that admits that, look, I don't get the finance side of my business. That's what we're there for.
Gotcha.
But we don't want that client who's like, I don't understand accounting or finance, so therefore I'm going to ghost you, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to avoid you, right?
Yeah.
We want that client who is who wants that financial information. They don't necessarily have to understand the process necessarily,
Yep.
but they have to understand the value of what it brings to their business.
It sounds like when you go start working in a client initially right away in your initial implementation, and you're digging into what they already have and you're digging into their books, there's probably like a story there, and then you're having to then figure out some things as you go and some things to improve what they're doing. I would say, like, I like to make analogies to football on the podcast. That seems like a very defensive kind of thing that you guys are in as this full service bookkeeper. What would be your opinion on the role you play with your clients if you were a position on a football team? Like what position do you think best shows what the bookkeeper fractional accounting department would be?
It's a good question. I'm always going to lean towards being the quarterback, right? We want to be the one.
You like being the quarterback. I like it.
Directing the process. Not so much in their business, but from the accounting. We want to be the quarterback. We want to be the play caller. So I think that would probably be the best analogy.
So you want to be the play caller.
Maybe not even a player.
Gotcha.
Maybe more as a coach.
Okay.
Right. So
I've had a lot of people like to say coach that I've had on the podcast so far. So we're going to stick with quarterback.
Okay.
You're the first one to say quarterback. So I like that analogy. So you're quarterbacking their money, their accounting, their financials. I also feel like a lot of business owners, when they're small and they're growing, they tend to have the mentality, because we see this in payroll around taxes, where, it's basically, you want profitability, you want sales, and then, labor costs, and then taxes to be as low as possible. And then a lot of times if they're talking to you guys are trying to get them to look at it differently, because the more taxes you actually pay, the more ability to get financing, the more ability you can have to actually scale the business. So, like, do you ever have to, like, help teach one of your clients to look at their money and taxes differently so that they can actually grow and scale?
Yeah, so we stay in our lane with the accounting. We do not do tax prep.
Would that be more of a fractional CFO, and then you like to work with those guys?
We do partner with fractional CFOs.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, we do provide some level of advisory, right? It's only natural in accounting. We do month-end reviews with our clients, and we'll highlight variance analysis and this was up, this was off. That type of interaction with our clients.
But you're the quarterback. You're not the offensive coordinator. A CFO can be more like that. So you guys are you're getting into the numbers and the nitty gritty of the play of the.
We
playbook.
definitely roll our sleeves up,
yeah.
and maybe audible at the line from time to time.
Yep.
As we see fit. But tax prep is complex.
Yes.
Right. So if you look at we all know that the tax code is crazy,
constantly changing,
and so we don't try to be too many things.
Gotcha.
To too many people. That we want to be really good in the field of accounting, and I think that's where we excel.
Gotcha. It's probably good. It's
the debits and credits, the transactional side.
It's like what we have in common, payroll partners and supporting strategies, is we're trying to be really good at grunt work, which I think there's more value in that in this economy and labor market today. Everybody wants to make a lot of money to just like be an expert and speak off the top of their head things they've learned from their experience. And honestly, I think there's getting to be too many people doing that type of stuff. And there's not enough people willing to roll their sleeves up, both fill in the data, figure out the software that works for somebody, and just do it. And that's what people want. They want people to do the grunt work. Like with payroll, it's tax filing. With you, it's figuring out the most efficient way to do their bookkeeping. So
every business has to do their accounting and bookkeeping. Every single one. They do it in different ways. there's a lot of really bad accounting out there.
Yep.
That we've seen and experienced. But yeah, we don't. There's an awful lot of people out there telling you how to do things.
Yeah.
We do it, right?
So if you want somebody to do it, that makes a lot of sense. Now I want to go backwards a little bit. So, we talked before we started taping how you have a lot of time in higher education. You have both your CPA and you have a law degree, that is impressive in itself. You probably are in a 0.1% of a group of people there. So, but I don't want to ask you about that. I want to go back to your first payroll job. I ask every guest, what was your first payroll job? That job where you actually had taxes taken out, and is there anything in that job that you learned that you still use today?
Oh, I mean, I delivered papers, but I guess that's not going to qualify.
The paper route doesn't count for this.
I would say my first true job probably would have been at Cincinnati Gas and Electric. My dad worked there, and they would offer employees, their kids, summer jobs. So I worked.
You were reading meters and stuff like that?
No. I was in the maintenance department over off of the location that is on Dana Avenue.
Okay.
The CG&E there, which is not Duke Energy. And I mean, I did the most basic types of maintenance, from bathroom cleaning to
so
routine.
I think they call that janitorial. I know. I don't know if that's
janitorial. Yeah,
maintenance is no offense to anybody in the janitorial industry, but that sounds like janitorial.
It was very janitorial. Yes.
So, did you learn anything in that role that helped develop your work ethic or anything at all?
It was working with older men that.
Yep.
Probably were not too warm to me, coming in. And
gotcha.
So you kind of had to navigate through that and get them to buy in that you weren't a threat to them. And you had to be there every morning. I mean, we started at 7 maybe, and it wasn't glamorous work.
Yep.
There was little to no interaction with the world outside of that facility, and I enjoyed it.
Did you win over a lot of your coworkers by the end of the summers?
I think so. I remember there was a younger guy there that, he was maybe 4 or 5 years older than me at the time, but he had a child. I remember he had played football at Withrow, and he was just a good guy. And I remember just kind of connecting with him.
I think you're very down to earth for somebody who has both his law degree and his CPA. And I would think out of that select group I mentioned, a lot of those people are probably a little snobby, but Craig is not. And I think he learned, his blue collar roots helped him,
A snob, I'm not.
Yeah. Develop an ability to, communicate with the rest of us.
In the education thing, I'm just kind of driven maybe a little bit differently, that if it's there and I feel like I can do it, I kind of go for it. So that's what led me to that. Do
you find all that stuff that most people find boring? Do you find it interesting? Do you like to stay up on it and read about it? And
I truly like accounting. Yeah. I like reading annual reports and 10Ks and reading financial statements, as weird as that may sound. But I think there's a story there and I'm comfortable in that world, right? I don't feel threatened or it just kind of comes natural to me. My dad was a CPA, so maybe that's just kind of trickled down somehow.
That's awesome. So
he was very excited when I decided that I wanted to take the CPA exam.
Did your dad have the same entrepreneurial spirit that you
Absolutely
have?
Not.
Okay, so
not even close.
So you also have had other businesses. You were big into the cell phone world when it was newer. Yeah. So tell me about that. What did you do before supporting strategies?
So for about 15 years, I was the CFO at Queen City Barrel. It was known as Queen City Barrel around here. We had plants elsewhere, Columbus, Louisville. And that challenged me for a very long period of time because we were always into something new.
Yep.
And so I really kind of got to feel entrepreneurial, but within a different environment. And in 2007, we sold, and I was the only one out of 300 employees that left.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and I started a chain of Verizon wireless stores. Started with 2 and eventually grew it to 19 in a 4-state region: Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Indiana.
So what made you start a bunch of cell phone stores?
I don't know. It was there, and it sounded. I bought 2 existing stores, and it sounded like something that there was a lot of growth opportunity for. I had no experience in retail, and I'll tell you from this perspective now, I would not recommend retail.
It's tough.
It is tough. It's difficult to.
I hated working retail. I much more preferred food service. Like I tried retail. My dad worked in retail, and it was boring. It wasn't
boring. It was. I was able to scale it to a certain part, to a certain point. I thought I would do it the rest of my life.
I'm sure owning all the stores is not boring, but like I'm telling your employees,
it's difficult to scale between employees, locations, inventory, managing all of that from a distance. We're on 32 right now. We just Highway 32. I would burn a route up 32, up to Mount Orab, and then I would just keep on going because I had stores in West Virginia.
Hitting up each one and just
and it was just
stopping in, checking with each manager.
It was a grind,
employees.
Right?
Everybody'd probably stand up a little straighter when you'd walk in the store.
Sure.
The big boss.
And then as soon as you leave, it's like
they're back to whatever else they're doing in the back. Yep. Retail is tough, and employees is tough. Now you're in a much different role. You're not just filling local retail jobs, but now you're having to bring on accounting people. And, so what's been a challenge in this market? Because you've grown. Like I know when I first met you, you were still just kind of fairly new, and you've brought on a ton of business over the last 3 or 4 years to where you've had to bring on a lot more bookkeepers. So what's been your secret in creating a culture for employees at Sporting Strategies?
Yeah, I have an incredible staff, and we offer them the opportunity to work from home. So everything that we do is remote.
Yep.
And I let them do their job. We set up the processes and look, managing people remotely is not particularly easy.
We could do a whole podcast on that topic right there.
But I have a great group of 10.
It helps. You're hiring experienced people too.
I am, right? So it's, as compared to the world of retail, where I was reliant maybe on an 18-year-old who had little to no experience to make sure that we were doing what we needed to do.
Show up and unlock the door, right? That was sometimes the challenge.
Hopefully a little bit more than that, but now I'm dealing with professionals that are also engaged in the field of accounting. We're not taking people that have done something else and trying to make an accountant out of them. They have experience in accounting. I have a few CPAs on my staff, a few with MBAs, and they're professionals.
Yep.
And it's just easier to manage a group like that, and it's I enjoy it.
So,
and there is a shortage of, I guess, accountants out there, right? I hear about that and people offshoring and this, that, and whatever. But with what we offer our employees, I've not necessarily had that problem. Our employees are oftentimes either maybe a stay-at-home parent who want that flexibility to work from home, or maybe they're on the other side of their career where they are an early retiree, right? And they want to spend less time, but they want to stay engaged with businesses and accounting, and we offer them that opportunity.
So obviously in today's labor market, everybody's starting to specialize more. They're trying to get more work-life balance. They're trying to use software more efficiently and do a lot of the same things. The biggest issue you and I have spoke on before that I want to address now is how do we convince the entrepreneur that it's better to have a tax person, CPA, a bookkeeper, and a payroll company, all separate vendors right out of the gate because they're all their own specialty, versus this mentality that I need to go to one old school CPA shop that does all three that my parents did. So we've talked about this before. So do you think, do you agree that payroll, bookkeeping, and tax have become their own specialties, and that it does make sense to have three vendors for those things now, and a good move for an entrepreneur would be to set up all three?
Yeah, and to have three doesn't necessarily mean it's more expensive.
Exactly. Yes.
That each one is its own unique world. That because you're good at tax doesn't necessarily mean that you are good at processing payroll or being able to get into the nuts and bolts like Payroll Partners does.
Yeah.
And the same thing with accounting. That my experience is most CPA firms do not necessarily embrace new technology in the world of accounting and bookkeeping. That they kind of just go with the known and maybe even be old school where there's still a lot of paper involved.
Yeah.
We try to go as paperless as possible. Leverage cloud-based systems.
Yep.
And so when you separate those three, each one brings novel ideas.
Yep.
So to separate the three, if you were to go to a doctor, would you go and you had a problem with a leg, your eyes, and your heart, right? You're not going to go to one doctor to say, "Hey, fix me."
Yep.
You're gonna go to who is best prepared for each of those issues.
If I have a heart condition, a foot condition, and an eye condition, I'm going to go see three different doctors.
You're not going to go to your GP, right?
Yeah, you're not going to have one person do all that. So entrepreneurs should take notice that these are three very different areas. In payroll, we don't get involved in. Our biggest role is we're kind of in this employee. Our biggest role is doing the employees' taxes. And doing all the requirements for that. And then when that has brought us into an employee database and HR role, where we even help small businesses with not necessarily all aspects of HR, but just some parts of it. And, that's a lane. And then, if you're the business's tax CPA, they care about that business owner, that EIN entity, and how to, do what they need to do to keep their taxes as low as possible. And then your guys' role is to just make everything efficient. And that's what I love about, the way you embrace technology. And we embrace technology too, but would you agree that one thing we have in common is that you need people and technology both, and that's a differentiator with both of our companies?
Yeah, I would never go, with, you can only take AI so far, right?
Yep.
That we're as good as our people, we're as good as our staff. I've had some bad, right?
Yeah.
Not every employee that I've hired has worked out as I would like for them to.
You're not batting thousand on?
I'm not.
Yep.
So yeah, the quality of the people that we employ is vitally important to not only our success, but our clients' success.
So if you are a business and if you need a quarterback to quarterback your accounting department who will give you both the right combination of people with the proper expertise and also recommend the right software to do everything for your accounting department, then you need to go see my friend Craig over at Supporting Strategies. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Matt. Enjoyed this.
But that's a payday. Come up on a lick. That's a payday. Come across a brick. That's a payday. Payday.